get started in about 1 minute. I hope everybody out there is doing well, healthy and safe. Looks like a nice day today. All right, it's 2 o'clock. Thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure to talk with you today. I hope that everyone out there is doing well during these unprecedented times. I thought that what we would start with today is a story. And that's a story about us to kind of lock us into this discussion. Accountants One engaged a search firm to find our next great director of client development. And I'm going to say that again, a director of client development at a time like this, where we've got so many things, so many questions about the future of business. And the reason that I am starting with our story about a search for our director of client development is because I wanted you to see that I'm willing to walk the walk and talk the talk. In fact, we made an offer last week and received an acceptance. So this individual will start. And that's because we recognize that this economy is going to turn around, that this will be behind us, and we want to be stronger than when we went into this. So what we wanted to throw around was we wanted to explore the idea. Maybe, just maybe, it makes sense for you to start to think about an executive hire at a time like this. And if that's true, then there may be some tools that we could share with you. I hope that we're able to bring you some value as we talk about executive recruiting strategies for the pandemic economy. Now, this is only 20 minutes. If you have further questions, if you want to get into further discussions about this, contact me or Tori. We will be glad to address them further. Again, this is only 20 minutes to fire up your thinking about talent. My name is Dan Erling. I'm the CEO of Accountants One. I wrote a book called Match, a systematic, sane process for hiring the right person every time. But I think the thing that gives me the most credibility as we're talking here today is that our firm, Accountants One, last year had a success rate at 93%. That means 93% of the people we put into jobs stayed for at least a year. And we've never been below 91%, and we've been as high as 98%, which I think, again, that statistic right there shows that our best practices approach to hiring is incredibly effective. And again, that's where I hope that I can bring you some value today. So let's jump into what we're doing. And that is with a great quote from my favorite business guru, Peter Drucker, who said, "The best way to predict the future is to create it." That's what we're here to talk about today. Can you create the future for your organization through hiring an exceptional person? Well, here's the 3 questions that we want to ask. What good will become of this pandemic? What good is going to come out of it for you? No, you can't control the virus. You can't control the economy, but you can control our reaction. And maybe if you control it in the right way, you'll be more in control of your future, as Drucker talks. Where do you want to be in 6 months? Again, as we're sitting here wondering what's going to become of this pandemic economy, this is an opportunity for us to put into play some strategies that may be able to bring you value. And finally, the culminating question: is today the day to start your search for the next exceptional leader? Let's assume that that answer is yes. You know what? It does make sense. And if that's the case, then I want to share some best practices with you in terms that will allow you to effectively hire, recruit, and retain that exceptional person. By the way, if you have any questions that you want to share during this, take your cursor and put it at the bottom of the screen. I'll address questions at the end of this. There's also a worksheet that Tori sent over to you. I hope that you're following along with that as well. All right, so here's our agenda. Creating your wish list for that great executive. And look, I'm going to use examples that are in my world, the world of accounting and finance. It's going to be a CFO example, but this works equally well in sales, in operations, in HR. So it is best practices around creating your wish list for that next great executive that's going to bring you value as we come out of this economy. The top 3 objectives for that individual: aligning your hire with your culture, leveraging your competitive advantage, next steps, how to make it happen, and then, as I said, any questions that come up throughout this seminar, please, again, go ahead and post them, and we'll try to get to them. All right, let's get into this agenda, the wish list. We're going to start this topic of the wish list with a great business idea from Jim Collins, who said that greatness is not a function of circumstance. Greatness, it turns out, is largely a matter of conscious choice and discipline. So as we're creating the wish list for our executive, because we want to take advantage of this, we want to take advantage of this unprecedented time, we need to be purposeful and intentional. We need to start by clarifying exactly who you are. What is the size of your company? What industry are you in? What is the mission of your organization? More important today than ever before. Then what does your org chart look like? Where does that person live on your org chart? And then start to compile that job overview consisting of your job description and the skills required. You need to clarify exactly what you want as you're developing this profile of the executive who's going to come in and bring you great value. Now, this is, as I noted, a wish list from that CFO search that we conducted last year. It's a long laundry list, starting at the top with clarifying the integrity of financial statements and all accounts within the statements, very broad, to working to a very narrow bullet point, which is utilize Timberline to effectively report and dashboard key metrics, including work in progress. As you can see, a very thorough job description. And then the skills required. What's the experience and the technical skills that is required to do this job? Do a thorough, purposeful, intentional overview of the person who is going to fill that role. Then move to your top 3 objectives. Now, I've done this over 20 years, and I have to tell you that listing the top 3 objectives is the most impactful exercise that I've ever come across, the best practice that I've ever seen in creating descriptions of what we're looking for. And here's the question that one needs to ask once they've created that very long, lengthy job description. Now it's time to go back and say, what are your top 3 objectives that this individual, and in our case, that the CFO needs to complete during the first 6 to 12 months, and how will you evaluate that individual? Let me say that again. It deserves it. What are the top 3 objectives that this individual will be responsible for, and how will you evaluate them? Notice that I didn't say the top 5 objectives, or I didn't say the top 1 objective. It is on purpose that we list the top 3 objectives that this individual needs to create, and how will they be evaluated. So, for instance, and these are simplified, complete the timberline installation by the end of 2019. Notice we've clarified the objective, but we've also given a timeline. Very important, that evaluation piece. Here's another one. Complete succession planning process and have key documents on file by December 31st, 2019. Again, we've clarified what is most important for the CFO and how it's going to be evaluated. And finally, in the first 6 to 12 months, the CFO will work with the current executive team to create a process improvement plan to drastically improve all accounting finance systems throughout the organization. Again, notice that we've included an evaluative process in this objective. So, we're assuming that it makes a heck of a lot of sense for you and your organization to find your next great executive. You're moving through this process. You've created a wish list. You've listed out your top 3 objectives. Now, in order to find that right person, the next step is incredibly important. Aligning your hire with your culture. At Accountants One, we find that it's 75% culture, only 25% technical skills. And Louis Gerstner, who is the former CEO of IBM, agreed with us. The thing I've learned at IBM is that culture is everything. But how do you evaluate culture? How do you get that objective corporate snapshot of your culture? Well, in the packet that Tori has supplied to you, there is a cultural scorecard. It's a great way to just get an overview of your organization. It's detailed in my book. It's also on my website for free. But there's all kinds of ways to evaluate your corporate culture. What we suggest, though, is that you do it, that you go about the process of evaluating your culture objectively so that you can get a good understanding of who fits best within your organization. Next, leverage your competitive advantage. Now, what do I mean here as we're talking about leveraging competitive advantage? All I'm saying is sell what you're selling. Be true to the organization that you are. If you're a small organization, explain to the world, raise the flag that you are a small organization. If you are an aggressive organization, celebrate that. Because the worst scenario is when you're an aggressive organization and you hire an unaggressive person. That never fits. So detail exactly who you are. Are you in manufacturing? Are you an organization that is in growth mode? When you detail that, you will be much more likely to find the person who fits in with exactly what your organization is. Too often, we see organizations trying to hide who they are. Not sell what they are selling, but sell what they want to be. Rather, detail exactly who you are and sell that. So leverage who you are as you're creating your profile for the executive that you've decided to hire, because now is the time. The 5th point on our agenda, next steps. making it happen. All right, so how do you now move towards aligning your organization with that talent? Well, Peter Drucker said, and this is a long-winded quote, I'll just end with the last idea, which is an executive too has to learn not to depend on insight and knowledge of people, but on a mundane, boring, and conscientious step-by-step process. So you've created all of these overviews. You've detailed exactly what you want. You've identified your culture. You've defined who you are. You know what your competitive advantage is. Now, how do you then align the right people to your organization? Well, Peter Drucker tells us that it is a boring, conscientious, step-by-step process, and he could not be more right. Candidate pooling is essential, starting with as big of a group as you can find, and then working it down to your top 3 people, such that they are all qualified, but they differ in their approaches. That gives you the ability to make a great objective decision as you're thinking about hiring your next exceptional leader. So how do you start that candidate pool? Well, you can advertise online. You've got a company website, social media, more important than ever before, LinkedIn sourcing, e-sourcing, your internal recruiting team, contingency search. It's a great way to explore the market today. There's also retained search like we did with our director of client development, where we went to a company and said, hey, look, now is a great time for us to invest in the future. And the good thing about a retained search is you can pay for it in pieces across a longer period of time. And finally, turning to your referral network and asking for suggestions to put into that candidate pool. My big suggestion is to get yourself organized, do the best practices around creating that job description, and then let the structure dictate the process for how you're going to go about looking for that person. Now, look, this was supposed to be 20 minutes to stimulate your thinking around the thought that maybe today, I mean, again, this is not supposed to be a selling seminar, but rather a way to stimulate your thinking on whether today is a good day to start a search. We have not talked about behavioral interviews or money or references or onboarding, retention, managing ROI, none of those. All of that is in my book, and gosh, if this is an advertisement for my book, then great. You can go to Amazon and buy it. It's less than $20, and it will take you step by step through the process of hiring, as evaluated over thousands of hires, and with the focus on best practices. This is not Dan's opinion, but rather what over 20 years makes sense. Which organizations hire and retain the best people and how they do that. And that's what my book's about. So, the next agenda item was questions. Want to see if anybody has got any questions. I can do that right here. Okay, we have got one question here. It sounds like you are, it sounds like you're asking us to hire permanent hires. Wouldn't a consultant do better in a market like this? Oh, that's a good, yes, good question. Yes, you're totally right. The focus today was on executive hire, but a consultant may be an incredibly impactful hire, and that again, that allows you to not add to your team while bringing in high quality talent, and not on a permanent basis. I think that's a great point. really the focus of my meeting here today was to talk about executive hiring and bringing somebody onto your team. But so a great point, and I think what really matters is, as the leader of your organization, what is your direction? And knowing that you have options in today's market is most important. So we started with 3 important questions. What good will come of this pandemic? Where do you want to be in 6 months? And is today the day to start your search for your next exceptional leader? I hope that I've stimulated your thinking around this, and I hope that I've given you some value in processes that you can put into play if indeed today is the day to start your search for the next exceptional leader. And with that, we'll end with a quote from Peter Drucker, who said, "People decisions are the ultimate, perhaps the only control of an organization. People determine the performance capacity of an organization. No organization can do better than the people it has." And this is true when Peter Drucker said it. It is as true today in this pandemic economy. Today may, in fact, be the perfect time for you to start your search for your next exceptional team member. And if that's the case, I hope that there was some value in these strategies that I threw out there. Again, if you're interested in further dialogue on any of these, please reach out to Tori or Dan, and we'll get back in touch with you and continue the dialogue. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope there was some value. Thank you so much for your time today, and we will see you soon. Thanks so much.